Previously, Fang Yuan shocked the entire academy and seized the resources he needed by force. Now, his actions draw the attention of the Mo family, and a simple conflict between students begins to turn into something far more dangerous. Let us continue with Reverend Insanity, Episode 3. Above the training ground, the youth stepped forward one after another for the assessment. Everyone wanted to prove themselves, everyone wanted to seize the top position. Yet among all those gazes, what people truly awaited were only two names: Fang Zheng and Fang Yuan. Fang Zheng stepped out first. He was the only grade A talent of the village in the past 3 years. The hope placed under countless expectations, and also someone who had lived his entire childhood under his brother's shadow. But even a genius could feel nervous. Standing under such heavy expectations, his fingers trembled slightly. The first Moonblade, which was meant for the dummy's chest, deviated and cut straight at the neck. Ironically, that mistake was mistaken for skill. People thought it was intentional, that he was confident enough to strike the most difficult spot. No one knew that at that very moment, his heart had skipped a beat. He forced himself to calm down. The next two Moonblades finally hit the target. The result was not bad enough to keep him among the leading group. Enough for everyone to believe that today's champion could only come from 3 people: Bei, Chi Cheng, and Fang Zheng. Then finally, it was Fang Yuan's turn. The moment he stepped out, the atmosphere changed instantly. Some sneered, some waited to watch a joke. In their eyes, Fang Yuan was nothing more than someone who got lucky in the previous test, a fake genius. Even Fang Zheng believed so. He clenched his fists, staring fixedly at his brother. As long as he won this time, the shadow that had weighed on his life for so many years would finally disappear. But Fang Yuan did not explain, did not defend himself. His face remained cold, without the slightest ripple of emotion. Then he made his move. The first Moonblade flew completely off target. Not only did it miss, it passed over the dummy's head and flew 15 meters before dissipating. The training ground immediately erupted in laughter, mockery, ridicule, contempt. In everyone's eyes, Fang Yuan had revealed his true level. Even the academy elder silently shook his head, already deciding that first place would belong to Fang Zheng, but no one knew. That strike had been intentional. Amid the laughter, Fang Yuan stood quietly under the spring sunlight. His shadow stretched across the ground. The breeze carried a faint floral scent. Everything seemed strangely peaceful. And within that calm, he had already calculated everything. He knew to take first place, simply hitting the target was not enough. He had to create a result that would silence everyone. Meanwhile, Fang Zheng thought he had already won. A surge of excitement rose within him. He believed that from this moment on, he would surpass Fang Yuan step by step, and erase the shadow that had long weighed on his pride. But at that exact moment, Fang Yuan attacked. His hand slashed through the air like a blade. One Moonblade shot out. In less than a breath, his hand flashed again, a second Moonblade followed. Smooth, continuous, terrifyingly precise. 2 streaks of blue light tore through the air, almost without any gap between them. Before everyone's stunned eyes, both struck the dummy's neck. 1 second later, the dummy's head tilted, then slowly fell. It bounced on the ground and rolled away. Fang Yuan had severed the dummy's head. The entire training ground fell silent. No laughter, no ridicule. Only stunned faces, staring at him as if they could not believe what they had just witnessed. Even the academy elder frowned. Was this luck or true skill? No one could answer. Fang Zheng stood frozen in place. In that instant, all his confidence and ambition were completely crushed. He looked at his brother as if falling straight into an abyss. But the one who caused all of this remained terrifyingly calm. Fang Yuan paid no attention to any gaze around him. He simply stood there looking up at the sky, watching the birds flying under the spring sun. His expression remained indifferent, as if the one who had just severed the dummy's head was not him. Only a faint thought passed through his mind: the spring sunlight is indeed beautiful. As dusk settled over the academy, more than 50 youth sat silently in the main hall, waiting for the elder to call their names and distribute this week's primeval stones. Then the name was called: Fang Yuan. He slowly stood up from his seat by the window. His expression was calm, his gaze cold as still water, completely unlike a teenager who had just taken first place twice in a row. This time he received 2 bags of primeval stones. One was the regular allowance, the other was the reward for first place. Winning twice consecutively had finally made it impossible for the academy to ignore him any longer. Yet the looks directed at him were not admiration but suspicion. Because no one believed that someone with grade C aptitude could repeatedly step over those considered geniuses. Just as the youths were still silently gritting their teeth, the elder dropped an even more shocking announcement. From today onward, they would not only learn how to use Gus, but would begin true cultivation, nurturing their aperture, advancing their realm, and raising their cultivation level. Whoever first reached rank 1 middle stage within the next 3 months would receive 30 primeval stones. Priority in choosing a second Gu worm. And most importantly, the position of class leader. The next 2 would become vice leaders. From then on, the class leader would receive 10 primeval stones each week, and each vice leader 5. In an instant, the entire academy erupted. Some clenched their fists tightly. Some had fire burning in their eyes. Some felt their hearts pounding, as if they had just seen a path to changing their fate. For them, primeval stones were only part of it. What truly drove them into frenzy was the title of class leader, the authority to stand above others. The feeling of being bowed to, admired, and looked at with entirely different eyes than before. Fang Zheng was no exception. In that instant, his heart burned fiercely. He wanted to be the first to break through, to seize the position of class leader, to reach a day when even his own brother would have to lower his head before everyone. But when he turned around, Fang Yuan's seat was already empty. He had left. Not only Fang Zheng, Mo Bei wanted to find him, Kai Cheng wanted to find him as well. They wanted to know whether those 2 first-place victories were real strength or merely luck. But Fang Yuan had already left 1 step ahead, so fast that no one could stop him. In their eyes, their true opponents were only each other. Someone like Fang Yuan with grade C aptitude would sooner or later be left behind. But what they did not know was that the one they looked down on the most was the one who had seen through everything the earliest. While the others were still dreaming of class leader, vice leader glory, and status, Fang Yuan was already standing outside the academy gates, silent, calm, like someone completely detached from it all. In his eyes, everything those youths were fighting over so desperately was merely bait, an empty title, a small step. A carrot dangled in front of people to lure them into competing, trampling one another, and risking their lives for a system that had already been arranged. The clan was like this, sects were like this. Demonic factions were no different. Wherever there was organization, there was hierarchy. Wherever there was power, there were those willing to bow their heads to climb higher. They thought they were pursuing glory. But most of them did not realize that what was truly being taken from them was their effort, their value, and even their lives. Fang Yuan understood this better than anyone, because he had once built his own demonic sect with his own hands, and had seen countless people gather for gain, only to betray and slaughter one another for that same gain. So he understood very clearly all the glamorous facades in this world ultimately came down to one thing: resources. Without resources, one would starve. Without resources, one would be crushed. Without resources for cultivation, sooner or later, one would become a stepping stone for others. And for a Gu master, primeval stones were the most important resource of all. At that thought, the corner of his lips lifted slightly into a cold smile, one that made people uneasy. At this moment, the first group of students had already walked out of the academy. Seeing him standing at the gate, some frowned, some were displeased, and some did not even bother to pay attention. But right then Fang Yuan took a step forward, blocking everyone's path. No hesitation, no courtesy. No intention of hiding anything, he spoke. His voice was calm yet chilling to the bone. This is a robbery. Then his gaze swept across each of them, completely unmoved. Each of you hand over 1 primeval stone before you leave. In an instant, fear turned into anger. Some thought they had misheard, some cursed him outright. Others sneered, thinking he had gone mad. But before they could react, Fang Yuan had already made his move. No warning, no hesitation, no chance given, a palm strike cut across. A youth who was still in the middle of cursing was struck in the neck. His eyes rolled back and he collapsed to the ground. The entire group instantly fell into chaos they had never expected. That he would truly dare to attack. And that his very first move would knock someone down so quickly. Some panicked and stepped back. Others shouted, calling for everyone to rush him together. They had the numbers, he was alone. Logically, if they attacked together, they should be able to bring him down. But logic was one thing, reality was another. Before they could even organize an assault, Fang Yuan had already taken the initiative, charging straight into the crowd. His figure lunged forward like a lone wolf, yet carried the aura of someone who had once walked through mountains of corpses and seas of blood. One palm strike, one person fell. One dodge followed by a kick straight to a vital spot, a scream rang out. His hands moved in rapid succession, each motion clean, swift, ruthless, and precise to the point of sending chills down one's spine. He was like a ferocious tiger plunging into a flock of sheep. And those youths, though many in number, were nothing but inexperienced lambs. Before someone with 500 years of combat experience, they were laughably weak. In the blink of an eye, some lay unconscious, others curled up in pain. The academy gate turned into a scene of complete chaos. At that moment, Bei arrived. The instant he saw what was happening, his expression changed drastically. Around Fang Yuan, 5 or 6 students were already sprawled across the ground, while the one who had caused it all still stood there, calm to a terrifying degree. Someone on the ground clutched his stomach and gritted his teeth, accusing Fang Yuan of extorting primeval stones from everyone. But before he could finish, Fang Yuan stepped forward and coldly kicked him in the abdomen. A miserable scream burst out. The youth's body curled up like a shrimp, tears streaming down his face. From that moment on, he did not dare say another word. Just that single kick was enough to make those who had just arrived shudder. They finally realized the person standing before them was not someone who merely talked tough. He was a madman who truly dared to act, dared to strike, dared to make people fall, and most importantly, he struck with terrifying precision. Fang Yuan took a step forward. His gaze swept across everyone like a cold blade. His voice remained calm yet frightening. Hand over one primeval stone obediently, otherwise, they will be your outcome. The moment those words fell, Bei exploded in anger. He was grade B talent, always proud and arrogant. How could he accept being threatened by someone of grade C standing in front of him? Without another word, he threw a punch and charged forward. But that punch did not even touch the edge of Fang Yuan's clothes. With a slight shift of his body, Fang Yuan effortlessly avoided the attack. In the next instant, his left hand shot out like lightning. His fingers stabbed directly into the weakest points of the opponent's body, the collarbone gap, the throat, and the most vital areas. Bei's expression changed immediately. The world before his eyes went dark and he collapsed to the ground, unconscious. At that instant, the remaining youths all sucked in a sharp breath. Even Bei had been defeated so easily. They did not understand martial techniques. They did not know that every strike Fang Yuan used targeted human weak points. They only understood one thing: attacking him meant falling. Even more terrifying was that Fang Yuan was not striking randomly. Every move was measured. Enough to strip his opponents of combat ability. Enough to make them suffer unbearable pain. But never crossing the line into serious injury or death. This was not the recklessness of a teenager, this was the precision of an old monster who had survived countless life and death battles. Even so, the remaining students were unwilling to accept it. Forced to this extent by a single person, they gritted their teeth, roared, and rushed forward together. But more people did not change the outcome. Fang Yuan dodged within inches, struck in an instant. From beginning to end, his expression remained calm, chillingly so. Thud, thud, thud. In just a few breaths, more bodies collapsed onto the ground. At this point, those still standing were truly afraid. Especially the girls standing at the back. Their faces turned pale, their bodies trembled. When Fang Yuan's gaze swept toward them, they immediately stepped back in panic, waving their hands. They no longer dared to fight, nor did they dare to argue. They could only tremblingly take out their primeval stones and hand them over themselves. Fang Yuan accepted everything naturally. Then he continued to stand at the gate, not moving even half a step. Because he knew anyone who wanted to leave the academy had to pass through here. As long as he stood here, no one could avoid him. One person fell. Another arrived, the next saw the scene, felt fear, heard his words, grew angry, rushed forward, and then fell as well. Just like that, the academy gate became a place where one person blocked an entire crowd. A single youth, a lone figure. Yet forcing everyone to lower their heads. At the same time, the incident had already alarmed the guards. Seeing such blatant extortion happening right under their noses, they were both furious and anxious. Some feared that it would lead to death. Others wanted to rush down immediately and arrest him. In their eyes, this behavior was clearly trampling over the Academy's rules. But when the news was reported, the Academy elder did not intervene immediately. Instead, he slowly walked upstairs and stood above, silently observing everything, and the longer he watched, the more his expression changed. Because at this moment he understood Fang Yuan's earlier performance was not luck, nor coincidence. It was talent, a rare kind of talent. A talent for combat, a talent belonging to someone born for slaughter. It was just a pity that his aptitude was only grade C, otherwise this youth would have been far more terrifying. The guards, however, did not think this way. They only saw their dignity being trampled. They only saw a boy openly blocking the gate, beating people, extorting others right in front of them. They wanted to stop him, to arrest him, to prove their own worth, but with just a few words the elder crushed all those thoughts. He spoke bluntly. Those students, though young and weak, still bore the Gu Yue surname. They were clan members, they were masters. And the guards, to put it plainly, were nothing more than servants. Servants daring to criticize their masters. Daring to interfere in the affairs of their masters. Daring to use rules as an excuse to discipline those of the clan. That single statement alone drained all color from their faces. One after another they dropped to their knees, kowtowing frantically, not a single one daring to raise their head again. Then the elder casually tossed down another bone. A squad leader had been stripped of his position, and in half a month a new one would be chosen. Half a primeval stone per month, a tiny post, yet enough to make the eyes of the remaining guards light up at once. They had just been whipped, and immediately afterward they were thrown bait. One hand held the stick, the other held the carrot, standing above. The elder looked down at the people below, scrambling to sell their lives for it, sneering coldly in his heart. Because he understood better than anyone that ruling others had never depended on authority alone. One also had to use benefits to make dogs bite dogs. Meanwhile, the robbery at the academy gate still had not ended. More than a dozen students were already sprawled across the ground, some unconscious, some groaning, some curled up in agony. Yet in the middle of that chaos, Fang Yuan still stood there, back straight, eyes cold, as if everything before him had nothing to do with him at all. At that moment, 3 girls who had been driven into a corner had backed tightly together. Their hands trembled as they activated their moonlight goo, and a faint blue glow appeared in their palms. If those moonblades were truly fired, then with Fang Yuan's current youthful body, he absolutely could not treat them lightly. But what was frightening was that he did not retreat, nor did he panic. Instead, he gave a faint smile, one carrying almost naked contempt. Step by step, he walked toward the 3 girls. His voice was not loud, but every word stabbed straight into their hearts as he asked whether they had forgotten the academy rules. Gu worms were not allowed to be used in fights within the academy. Anyone who violated that rule would be expelled. Just those few simple sentences made the light in the girls' hands waver at once. The fierceness that had just risen in them vanished by more than half. They hesitated, they were afraid. And that very moment was exactly what Fang Yuan had been waiting for. A flash passed through his eyes. His body shot forward like an arrow leaving the bow. 2 chops, 2 figures fell. It happened so quickly that before the onlookers could even see clearly, the 2 girls had already collapsed unconscious on the spot. The last girl had already broken completely. Her legs went limp and she collapsed to the ground, tears streaming down her face, her whole body shaking without end. In front of her, Fang Yuan was no longer a classmate, but more like a cold phantom that could not be resisted. He looked down at her from above, his gaze utterly unmoved, and said only one sentence, "One primeval stone." The girl nearly lost her mind with fright, in a panic. She opened her money pouch and poured all her primeval stones into her hand. Not just one but every last one. Only hoping he would not hit hers. But what she did not expect was that Fang Yuan merely slowly stretched out his hand. Picked up exactly one primeval stone between two fingers and stopped there. He took no more, he was not greedy. He did not exceed the limit he had set from the beginning. He said calmly, "I said, I would only take one stone, you may go." The girl stared blankly. She had not expected that within his cruelty, there would still exist such a cold kind of principle. But that very thing made the person standing upstairs pay even closer attention. The academy elder narrowed his eyes. He understood very clearly that if Fang Yuan had taken 2 stones, this matter would have crossed the line. If he had been too greedy, the elder would definitely have had to step in, but 1 stone was different, it still hurt. It was still enough to teach those youths a lesson. But it had not yet gone so far as to break the order. In other words, Fang Yuan was not going mad, he was testing the boundary. And the most frightening part was that he tested it with perfect precision. Not long afterward, the final group of students appeared, and among them was Fang Zheng. The instant he saw the scene at the academy gate, he froze in place. Everywhere there were groans. Bodies sprawled across the ground. Primeval stones stripped away. And the person standing in the middle of it all was his own brother. Fang Zheng could not believe his eyes, both shocked and furious. He loudly tried to persuade Fang Yuan, urging him to hurry and confess. To stop before it was too late, not to cause a catastrophe. Fang Yuan merely gave a faint smile, said that those words made perfect sense, and then coldly added, 1 primeval stone each. He would not spare even his own younger brother. No favor, no leniency. No change in principle, not even for blood ties. Fang Zheng stood stunned, unable to accept it. But the answer remained calm. Fang Zheng could choose not to hand it over, but the result would be the same as those lying on the ground. That single sentence was enough to stop the remaining group from saying anything more. They gritted their teeth, swallowed the humiliation, and handed over their primeval stones one by one, not because they submitted, but because they were afraid. But the matter still had not ended. When they tried to leave, Fang Yuan called them back. The whole group tensed, thinking he wanted to rob them further. But he only glanced at the people lying on the ground and said indifferently, "Don't tell me you expect me to bend down and search each one of them myself." Only then did they understand. He wanted them to search their own classmates with their own hands, gather up the primeval stones, and hand them over to him. It was an insult, an order, a form of absolute submission. No one dared refuse because his gaze was sharp as a blade, cold as ice. In the end, they still lowered their heads and obeyed. All 57 students in the class, except for him, lost 1 primeval stone each. Everything was gathered together and fell into Fang Yuan's hands. The pouch at his chest grew heavier and heavier, yet his expression remained calm as ever. From the 20 stones he had at the beginning, plus the allowance, the rewards, and this extortion, he now held 79 primeval stones in his hands, a number enough to make many people's eyes turn red with envy. And what sent a deeper chill through people than anything else was that he understood one truth all too clearly. The fastest way to make money was not trade nor saving but robbery. After that, Fang Yuan stuffed the swollen money pouch into his chest and turned away, striding off openly. Behind him were youths sprawled all over the ground, faces pale with humiliation and fear, and an entire academy yard that had just been forced to bow by a single person. Off in the distance, the guards now finally rushed over in a panic. Some called for healing Gu masters. Others scrambled to support their young masters. Everyone put on a show of diligence. Everyone tried desperately to prove their worth in order to seize the squad leader position that had just become vacant. But none of that had anything to do with Fang Yuan anymore. Because from the moment he turned and walked away, he had carried off all the primeval stones from that place and along with them the last shred of pride left in the entire class. Night fell quickly. After leaving the academy, Fang Yuan did not return to rest at once. Instead, he went straight to the inn. In one go, he bought 20 jars of green bamboo wine. The primeval stones he had just extorted had not even had time to feel warm in his hand before 40 of them were thrown out in the blink of an eye. To an outsider, it would look insane. For a youth who had only just stepped onto the path of a Gu master, 40 primeval stones were by no means a small amount. But Fang Yuan did not hesitate at all, because he understood very clearly that this wine was not for drinking. It was for feeding the liquor worm. When all the servants had left, the room gradually darkened. Outside the window, the moon hung bright in the sky. The night wind carried a faint chill of grass and trees through the cracks of the shutters. Fang Yuan sat cross-legged on the bed. He slowly closed his eyes. His consciousness sank into his body and entered his own primeval sea. Within his aperture, the surface of the primeval sea rippled with a faint bronze-green light. That was all the capital he currently possessed. A rank 1 initial stage Gu master, C-grade aptitude. An aperture whose limit was only 44% full. Surrounding the aperture was a thin membrane of light. Above the sea, the Spring Autumn Cicada had already fallen asleep again, hidden without a trace. Only a pale white liquor worm remained, floating in the primeval essence. It was plump, peaceful, and looked harmless. Yet that tiny thing was the very key to accelerating his path of cultivation. Fang Yuan moved his thoughts slightly. The liquor worm immediately responded. 10% of his primeval essence was drawn out and poured directly into its body. At once the little white worm began to glow, white light spread from it, the scent of wine thickened. Then it transformed into a faint mist that coiled around its body. Right after that, Fang Yuan continued pouring more primeval essence into it. The wine mist dissolved, the primeval essence changed. Its original light green color gradually deepened, turning into a darker and richer green. A completely new stream of primeval essence was condensed within the aperture. It was no longer the primeval essence of a rank 1 initial stage, but the primeval essence of a rank 1 middle stage. This was the true function of the liquor worm. It could not help someone break through a major realm, but it could forcibly refine primeval essence upward by 1 minor level. In other words, even though Fang Yuan himself was still only at the initial stage, he was already able to use the power of the middle stage. For a youth who had only just entered the path, that was an enormous advantage. It was enough of a gap to trample over most of his peers. It was his hidden trump card, the thing that would allow him to move faster than all of them. But the price was also very clear. To refine out just half a portion of middle stage primeval essence, he had to consume 20% of his initial stage primeval essence. To convert the entire primeval sea in his aperture would require an enormous amount of resources. And what he lacked most right now was precisely primeval stones. So he did not begrudge the expense at all. He tightly gripped a primeval stone as large as a duck egg in his hand, and continuously absorbed the natural primeval essence inside it to replenish what he had spent. The stone in his hand slowly shrank. The level of the sea in his aperture gradually rose again. Sitting in the darkness, Fang Yuan thought everything through very clearly. Today was only the first time. It certainly would not be the last. Every 7 days, as long as the academy handed out primeval stone stipends, he would continue standing at the gate, continue extorting, continue taking resources from the hands of others to feed his own path. Because he understood this world far too well, this was not Earth. There was no such thing as the false peace of a school environment. No one would truly step in to protect children from conflict. In this world, fighting was the main theme. Humans fought against wild beasts, fought against harsh weather, fought against other Gu masters for resources and for the road to survival. So controlled brawls were not only not detested, on the contrary, they were tacitly encouraged. The clan needed those who had the will to fight. It needed people who dared to struggle, dared to seize, dared to step on others in order to rise. Only an environment like that could never produce the weak. And what was most frightening of all was that Fang Yuan did not strike recklessly. He did not hit the chin because it was too easy to break bone. He did not hit the back of the head because that could too easily kill someone. He mostly used his palms. He rarely used his legs. Every single blow had already been calculated to its limit. Enough pain, enough to knock someone out. Enough to rob them of the ability to resist. But not enough to truly cause severe injury. That was not the hot-bloodedness of a teenager. It was the control of an old monster who had crawled his way out from mountains of corpses and seas of blood. He did not enjoy killing. But neither did he recoil from it. To him, killing was merely a tool. When necessary, he would use it. When unnecessary, he would stop at exactly the proper point. Everything he did had only one purpose: take the shortest road, seize the greatest benefit. Use the most efficient method, that was all. At the same time, while night covered the entire Gu Yue mountain stronghold, another place remained lit. In the study of Gu Yue Kai Lion, the oil lamp cast shadows across the wall. And standing before him, his grandson Kai Cheng was gnashing his teeth as he recounted everything that had happened during the day. One of his eyes was already bruised dark, his voice was full of anger. He accused Fang Yuan of blocking the gate, beating people, and extorting primeval stones. The more he spoke, the more aggrieved he became. In the end, he had only one thought left. He wanted his grandfather to stand up and reclaim justice for him. But Gu Yue Kai Lion only shook his head. He would not help, not because he did not care, but because he understood that this matter was not as simple as some schoolyard fight between students. He explained very clearly to his grandson, "You do not only represent yourself. You also represent the entire Kai faction, every word, every action. Every victory or defeat of yours affects the confidence of those who follow this family line." On the surface, Kai Cheng had to appear self-reliant. He had to prove himself to be an heir who could stand firm through his own strength. If every little matter required an elder to step in, those who supported the Kai family would begin to waver. Then they would leave. Only then did Kai Cheng learn more clearly another secret. The reason he could bear the reputation of B-grade aptitude was because his grandfather had secretly arranged it. He had created an image strong enough to reinforce the position of the Kai line. In other words, from the very beginning, the so-called genius was not as simple as Kai Cheng had always thought. In this world, even aptitude could become a political tool. Even the future of a youth could be used to prop up the power of an entire family branch. In the end, Gu Yue Kai Lion left his grandson only one road: stand up on your own, cultivate on your own, win back your own honor. Break into middle stage on your own. Seize the class leader position on your own. Because only then would he be qualified to become the true heir of the Kai line. Kai Cheng lowered his head and accepted the order. On the outside, he still looked full of determination. But in his heart, another fire had already been lit, the fire of competition, the fire of pressure, and the fire of hatred toward Fang Yuan. Meanwhile, somewhere else in the night, Fang Yuan still sat alone in the dark room. Beside him were jar after jar of green bamboo wine. In his hand, a primeval stone was gradually being consumed. And in his heart, there was a plan colder than the moonlight outside the window. He was not in a hurry, nor was he worried. Because he knew the wheel had already begun to turn, once every 7 days, one primeval stone each time. Each time, more people would be forced to bow their heads before him. And by the time those people realized what was happening, it might already be too late, almost at the same moment. Somewhere else in the stronghold, Fang Zheng stood straight in the main room. His head lowered as he recounted everything that had happened in the academy. The ones listening were the uncle and aunt of the two brothers. The aunt's expression was extremely ugly. In her eyes was both indignation on Fang Zheng's behalf and a trace of barely concealed delight. Gritting her teeth, she cursed outright that Fang Yuan was truly heartless. He had not even spared his own younger brother. In her view, after causing trouble like this, he would sooner or later be expelled from the academy. But the uncle did not react nearly as strongly. He only sighed, then told Fang Zheng not to care too much about losing one primeval stone. If he wanted, he could simply go to the treasury and receive another one as compensation. The truly important thing now was not being robbed, it was cultivation. It was competing for the position of being the first to step into middle stage. It was using his A-grade aptitude to seize first place. Fang Zheng bowed and withdrew. But his heart was far from peaceful. because he knew very clearly that what his elder brother had done today had already created an extremely bad impact. If Fang Yuan really were expelled from the academy, should he step forward and plead for him or not? In his mind, two voices pulled against one another without pause. One cold voice said, there is no need to plead. He even robbed the primeval stone of his own younger brother. If he gets expelled, then it is only his own doing. But the other voice reminded him, no matter what, that is still your elder brother by blood. Blood is blood. If you do not plead for him, how will other people look at you? Will they think you are cold and heartless? Inside the main room, after Fang Zheng left, the aunt could no longer hold back and spoke again. She felt that cutting off Fang Yuan's allowance had indeed forced him to reveal his true nature. He could no longer endure it, so he had gone and blocked the academy gate, beaten people and extorted stones. In her eyes, that was no different from seeking his own destruction. Being expelled was practically certain. But the uncle only shook his head. Not only did he disagree, he said with certainty that Fang Yuan would not be expelled. In fact, he might not even be punished once. Because he understood the rules of the academy better than anyone, as long as no one died. And as long as no truly serious injuries occurred. Then fights of this sort were not only not absolutely forbidden, they were tacitly permitted. Fighting was part of a Gu master's tempering. The more they fought, the more useful it became for real battles later. The uncle explained it very clearly. If the academy elder had truly wanted to stop it, the guards would have rushed out long before. But they had waited until the very end to appear. That only proved one thing. The entire situation had always remained under the control of the people behind it. In other words, the academy did not see this matter as having crossed the line at all. Hearing that, the aunt still could not accept it. All she felt was distress over those primeval stones. A brat like Fang Yuan suddenly seizing so many resources would naturally gain a huge advantage for his future cultivation. But the uncle was thinking farther ahead. He said little about the primeval stones. Instead, he looked at something else entirely: the crack forming between the two brothers. Even his own younger brother's stones Fang Yuan had taken by force. That was his greatest failure. As long as they fanned the flames a little more, as long as they pushed the distance between the brothers a little farther apart, then one day, when Fang Zheng had matured, they would be fully able to turn him into a piece on the board for themselves to use. And so, 3 days passed. What surprised many people was that the wave Fang Yuan had stirred up did not explode into a greater disaster. On the contrary, it gradually settled down. No elder stepped forward personally. No one broke the rules to make trouble for him. The academy elder too closed one eye and half closed the other, allowing the whole matter to drift by as though nothing had happened. Of course, not everyone could swallow that humiliation. In the days that followed, several youths who could not accept being robbed came looking for Fang Yuan, wanting to recover their face. But the result was exactly the same as before. No one beat him. No one got back what had been taken. On the contrary, it only made the entire class understand one thing more clearly. If they did not work hard at hand-to-hand combat, they would never be a match for him. From then on, another wave began to rise. The youths who had once yawned and dragged themselves through fist and kick lessons suddenly became incredibly diligent. Every one of them practiced like mad. Every one of them gritted their teeth and learned every move. All of them held the same thought: they had to wash away this humiliation with their own hands. The martial instructor, seeing that scene, was so delighted he could almost not believe his own eyes. He had never seen a class this enthusiastic about the basics of close combat. Before, when he lectured, they were inattentive and unfocused. But now every one of them had shining eyes, constantly asking questions, constantly requesting guidance. Even the academy elder deliberately asked about the matter. And when he heard the instructor report that among all the students transforming so much, only Fang Yuan remained as lazy as ever, the elder broke into laughter. Because he knew perfectly well that the one the instructor thought was doing nothing at all was in fact the very source of this entire change. After that incident, Fang Yuan became the common enemy of the whole class. No one spoke to him, no one greeted him. No one regarded him as a classmate anymore. All of them hated him, isolated him, and quietly prepared for the day of revenge. On the surface, everything seemed very quiet. But beneath that calm water, currents had already begun surging violently. Another 4 days passed. The academy once again distributed the primeval stone allowance. And just then, Fang Yuan made his move for the second time. Right in front of the academy gate, he stood once more in the same old spot. Hands clasped behind his back, face cold and expressionless. As though everything had already been decided in advance. The moment the students saw him, their expressions changed immediately. They had never expected that after the first time, he would still dare to come back. Still want to extort them again. Shouts of outrage rang out, angry accusations rang out. But all of it was answered by only one calm sentence, spoken in a tone frightening in its stillness. One primeval stone from each of you, and you can avoid the suffering of flesh. This time Mo Bei was the first who could no longer hold back. With a roar, he charged out to challenge Fang Yuan directly. But after only a few exchanges, he was already on the ground, unconscious. Immediately after that, Chi Cheng also rushed up. He could not believe it, could not accept it. Could not tolerate losing for a second time. But the ending was no different from Mo Bei's. After only a few short rounds, he too followed the same path and collapsed. The problem did not lie in their courage. It lay in the fact that Fang Yuan's combat experience was simply too terrifying. He knew how to use force, knew how to evade. Knew exactly where to strike so that an opponent would lose combat ability the fastest. If the whole class had rushed him together from the very beginning, perhaps he would indeed have run into a little trouble. But by charging in one at a time like this, they were no different from walking up onto an execution platform themselves. In less than a quarter of an hour, everything was over. Fang Yuan carried away the bulging pouch of primeval stones and left at an unhurried pace. And behind him lay a crowd of students sprawled before the academy gate, some unconscious, some clutching their stomachs, others curled up in pain, groaning without stop. And exactly like last time, only when everything was already over did the guards finally rush out in flustered panic to clean up the aftermath. Inside the Mo family courtyard, Mo Bei was furiously venting his rage on a wooden dummy. Fists, kicks. One heavy impact after another. At that moment his mind held only one feeling, humiliation. He had trained bitterly for 7 full days. Yet when he faced Fang Yuan, he had still only held out for 2 moves before being knocked unconscious again right in front of everyone. Just then a woman's voice rang out from behind him. It was Mo Yan, Mo Bei's elder sister. A rank 2 middle-stage Gu master who had only just returned from an outside scouting mission. With only a single glance at her younger brother's bruised face, her eyes instantly turned cold. Who dared strike Mo Bei? Who had the nerve to touch someone from the Mo family? But Mo Bei did not dare tell the truth. He dodged around it and glossed it over. Because he did not want to admit with his own mouth that he, the future heir of the Mo family, had been knocked unconscious twice by a C-grade youth. Mo Yan did not force him to explain further. She only casually gave him a few pointers about fist training, then turned and left. But she had not let the matter go. She went directly to the study. There her grandfather, Gu Yue Chen, was already waiting. Inside the study, the old man did not immediately look up. He slowly asked about the scouting mission first. The wolf dens outside the mountain were already closed to full. This year the wolf tide might still not erupt. But next year it would very likely surge toward the mountain stronghold, 3 crown wolves. Not an especially large number. But certainly not something anyone could afford to treat lightly. But Mo Yan did not truly care about that right then. The only thing she wanted to know was one thing. Who had beaten her younger brothers? And then Mo Chen gave her the answer. It was Fang Yuan, once 7 days ago and once again today. Both times he had beaten Mo Bei unconscious right on the spot. Hearing that, Mo Yan immediately flew into a rage. But what she could not understand was that her grandfather was not angry at all. On the contrary, he actually laughed. In his eyes, this was not entirely a bad thing. Because failure was what made a man grow up. Humiliation was what forced a person to become stronger as quickly as possible. Bei had been beaten, that was failure. But after that failure, he had begun voluntarily going to the household guards to learn hand-to-hand combat. He had begun to understand that aptitude alone was not enough. He had begun to truly want to grow stronger. And in Mo Chen's view, the one who had awakened that realization in him was precisely Fang Yuan. So the old man forbade Mo Yan to interfere. This was a matter for the younger generation. If she stepped in, then it would become the strong bullying the weak. It would lower the dignity of the Mo family itself. In his eyes, Fang Yuan was only a poor boy with C-grade aptitude. Mo Bei, by contrast, was B-grade and had the whole Mo family standing behind him. Sooner or later, there would come a day when he would personally crush Fang Yuan underfoot. But Mo Yan lowering her head and saying yes did not mean she would truly obey. Because in her heart, she had already made another decision. Her grandfather had his own way. She had her own way of protecting her younger brother. At the same time, elsewhere in the stronghold, Fang Yuan sat alone by the inn window. Before him were a few simple dishes. Outside the window, the evening sun burned red all the way down to the horizon. People were returning along the road. Farmers with mud on their legs. Herbal gatherers carrying bamboo baskets on their backs. Hunters hauling pheasants and wild boars. And among them moved Gu masters in dark blue martial robes, their belts marking their status. Fang Yuan ate while quietly observing everything. Rank 1 Gu masters wore blue belts with copper inlay. Rank 2 wore red belts with steel inlay. Rank 3 were usually already clan elders. Rank 4 were qualified to become clan heads. And as for rank 5, across the entire history of Gu Yue Mountain Stronghold, only a handful had ever appeared. One only had to sit in one place and observe the people passing for a single watch of time to see the inner depth of an entire clan. That was an insight he had built up over 500 years of wandering. And what he saw now only made the thoughts in his heart even clearer. Within King Mao Mountain, Gu Yue Mountain Stronghold was indeed an overlord. But if placed within the vast whole of southern border, it was only a middle-tier power at best. And he right now was only a rank 1 initial stage Gu master. He did not even yet possess the qualifications to leave this place alone. At minimum, he had to reach rank 3 before he could truly step out into the wider world and begin the road he wanted for himself. But just at that moment, a shadow blocked the space before him. It was a middle-aged man. His face was yellow and waxy like candle grease. His eyebrows were sharp, his build large. Both arms folded across his chest. His gaze pressed down from above, carrying not the slightest hint of goodwill. He gave a cold laugh. His voice was full of malicious satisfaction. Fang Yuan, I've finally found you. Then word by word, he dropped the next sentence like the announcement of a new trouble crashing down. You've made a huge mistake. You dared to beat the young master of the Mo family. And now Miss Mo Yan is searching everywhere for you to settle the score. Fang Yuan turned his head. His gaze remained as calm as before, no surprise, no fear. And not the slightest wavering. As though he had already long since known that this would come, only no one yet knew whether. Faced with a rank 2 Gu master backed by the Mo family, this youth would choose to lower his head or continue in his own way. To crush anyone who dared block his road. In the inn at dusk, Fang Yuan sat eating alone by the window. Outside, the last sunlight of the day dyed the whole road red. People passed back and forth, porters carrying goods. Workers returning after a day of labor. And he remained calm, as though there were nothing in the world worth troubling himself over. But that quiet did not last long. A rough-built middle-aged man strode over, his eyes were fierce, his tone openly threatening. An ordinary person, faced with a man like that, would probably have felt guilty and uneasy already. But Fang Yuan only glanced at him once, then immediately looked away. As though what stood before him was not someone who had come to provoke trouble, but merely a meaningless shadow. The man saw himself being ignored and his face darkened even more. He kept raising his voice. He said someone had already gone to report the matter. He said the young lady of the Mo family would soon be here. He made it clear that Fang Yuan should not dream of leaving this place easily today. But no matter how he threatened him, Fang Yuan continued eating, He did not grow angry, did not answer. Nor did he show the slightest fear. That very calmness only made the atmosphere inside the inn grow even heavier. The servants stood huddled in the corners, some curious, some fearful. A few even secretly praying that if a fight really broke out, it would at least not smash up too much of the inn. And then at exactly that moment, a woman's voice sounded from outside the door. Mo Yan had arrived. She entered with a group of retainers behind her. Dust from her mission still clung to her body. The red belt at her waist reminded everyone present that this was a rank 2 Gu master. That appearance alone was enough to make the whole dining hall fall silent. Even the servant retainer who had just been acting so fierce immediately changed his expression. He bowed low, became submissive, fawning to the point that not a trace remained of the earlier arrogance. That change was enough to make anyone understand. The one who truly held power here was Mo Yan. She walked directly up to Fang Yuan. Her words were sharp, her presence pressing. She had clearly come to demand an explanation. And yet, even when facing a rank 2 Gu master, Fang Yuan did not panic in the slightest. On the contrary, he threw out a question that made everyone present freeze. Who told you I am Gu Yu Fang Yuan? With only that single sentence, the entire situation instantly shifted. Mo Yan stopped short. The retainers behind her looked at one another blankly. Because everyone knew that Fang Yuan and Fang Zheng were twin brothers, and their appearances were extremely similar. If the one before them was Fang Zheng, then today's matter would instantly become something completely different. At that moment, the sharpness in Mo Yan's eyes was replaced by hesitation. Because Fang Yuan might be someone she could offend. But Fang Zheng was not someone she could touch so casually. One was C-grade aptitude with no support behind him. The other was an A-grade genius, already within the sight of the highest levels of the clan. One wrong move and she might very well bring trouble onto herself instead. The inn servants all knew very clearly who the person before them was. But not one of them dared open his mouth. Because in a situation like this, saying one wrong sentence could bring disaster down on one's own head. And what of Fang Yuan? He had long since finished eating. He slowly stood up. His gaze remained as indifferent as ever. Then he said calmly, "Wasn't it Fang Yuan you wanted to find? Come with me. I'll take you to the academy dormitory and help you find him." At first hearing, it sounded like an entirely ordinary sentence. But the more one thought about it, the more unnatural it seemed. Mo Yan weighed it very quickly. If this person truly was Fang Zheng, then she absolutely should not touch him. And if this was Fang Yuan deliberately trying to throw her off, then all she had to do was follow, and she would know soon enough. So in the end, she chose to follow him to the academy. The whole group left the inn. Only then did the servants dare finally let out a long breath of relief. At least there had been no fights. At least nothing truly serious had happened. At the very least, the inn was still intact. Not long after, they arrived before the academy gate. According to clan rules, only members of the clan who were Gu masters could freely enter and leave. So the retainers who had come along were immediately stopped. Even Mo Yan could not openly force a whole group of people into the academy. In the end, she brought only one person with her. The same middle-aged retainer from before. Then she followed Fang Yuan deeper inside. He led her to the front of a dormitory room, took out a key, opened the door swung open. Inside, the plain room was revealed before everyone's eyes. There was no one else, no figure waiting inside, only a quiet, empty room. Mo Yan's face immediately darkened. She looked at the room. Then looked back at Fang Yuan's. Her tone turned colder by several degrees. "I want an explanation." Only then did Fang Yuan slowly smile. It was not a smile of panic. On the contrary, it carried the feeling that everything was still in his grasp. Then he looked at her and said very lightly, "Am I not a person too?" Only then did Mo Yan truly understand. Grinding her teeth, she enunciated each word. "The one I want is Gu Yu Fang Yuan." And right after that, Fang Yuan only gave a faint laugh. His voice remained as calm as before. But the sentence itself flipped the entire situation completely on its head. "I also never said that I wasn't Gu Yu Fang Yuan." At that instant, every pretense was torn away. So from beginning to end, the one being led around in circles had not been him, but Mo Yan. Her expression immediately turned cold, anger flared up in her eyes. The hand she had just lifted seemed ready to drag Fang Yuan outside at once. But at that very moment, Fang Yuan smiled instead. He did not retreat half a step, did not dodge, only raised his head and looked straight at her before asking a single question. "Have you thought it through?" Mo Yan's movement froze in midair. Because she suddenly remembered something very important. The academy had its own rules. Students inside the dormitory were protected. Outsiders were not allowed to barge in and seize people at will. If she truly stepped through this door, then today's matter would no longer simply be about teaching an arrogant brat a lesson, but would become an open violation of the rules, and might even implicate the people behind her. So in the end, she still had to withdraw her hand. That look in her eyes was as if she wanted to crush Fang Yuan on the spot, but she could not, at least not for now. And Fang Yuan, he still stood right inside the room, hands clasped behind his back, a faint smile at the corner of his lips, calm to the point that it made people choke with anger. The distance between the two of them was only a single step, one outside the door, one inside the room. But that one step felt like a boundary that could not be crossed. Mo Yan let out a cold laugh, forcing down her anger. She said it very clearly. Even if she could not catch him today, he could not hide in the dormitory forever. As long as he stepped outside, this matter would still not be over. Fang Yuan only laughed when he heard this. He calmly repeated everything one by one. It was already dark today. There was a bed in his room for him to sleep on, and tomorrow he still had to attend class. If tomorrow the academy elder were to ask why someone had blocked the door of a student dormitory, then that answer would not sound pleasant at all. The more Mo Yan listened, the uglier her expression became. Because she knew very well that the youth before her was not only bold, but understood the rules even better than many adults. He was not using strength to confront her. He was using the clan's own rules to turn her into the one bound hand and foot. Then right at that moment, Fang Yuan suddenly flung the door wide open. The door swung fully open, with nothing to cover, nothing to block, and not a single defensive gesture. He stood there looking at Mo Yan, his voice strangely calm. "Then make your move." On the surface, it looked like provocation, but in truth it was an extremely powerful psychological blow. Because if he had shut the door, Mo Yan might have found it easier to lose her temper and charge in. But once everything was laid out so openly, she instead had to be even more cautious, think even more about the consequences, and found it even harder to cross that doorway. And just as he had expected, Mo Yan only stood there, gritting her teeth, furious, yet still not daring to step even half a pace forward. As for Fang Yuan, he could not even be bothered to look at her any longer. He turned around, walked straight inside, then calmly sat cross-legged on the bed, as if there were not a rank 2 Gu master standing outside the door at all. It was precisely that attitude that truly drove Mo Yan mad, to be looked down on, toyed with, dragged into a dilemma with no advance and no retreat, and in the end still be unable to do anything to the other side. She began using words to provoke him, first calling him a coward, then mocking him for only knowing how to hide in his room. Every sentence targeted the self-respect of a young boy. Unfortunately, everything was useless. Fang Yuan sat there like a stone statue, not replying, not getting angry, not reacting even once. The longer she cursed, the more Mo Yan felt like she was the one putting on some ridiculous performance. And the only one who was truly calm in this whole situation remained Fang Yuan. In the end, she could only leave in fury. Before departing, she left behind a household servant to stand guard right outside the door, clearly intending to block him to the bitter end. The one left behind was named Gu Yue. He had a tall, broad build. But when he received the order, all he felt inside was bitterness. Because the nights in the mountains were very cold, standing guard outside the door for an entire night was certainly no pleasant task. Inside the room, however, Fang Yuan had long since stopped caring about those matters. His consciousness sank into his primeval sea. Wave after wave of primeval essence rose up, continuously nourishing and tempering the walls of his aperture. To go from the initial stage to the middle stage, one could not rely on willpower alone, but had to use primeval essence to continuously nurture it, transforming the walls of the aperture from the original light membrane into the more stable state of the middle stage. Time passed just like that. The primeval essence in his sea gradually sank lower. From 44%, it fell to just a little over 10%. When he opened his eyes again, it was already late at night. Cold moonlight spread across the wide-open doorway. Mountain wind slipped into the room, carrying with it the chill of the deep night. His 15-year-old body could not help but shiver slightly, because the nights in the mountain region were truly very cold. And right outside the door, Gu Yue was still standing there. The moment he noticed movement from Fang Yuan, he immediately began threatening him, first telling him to hurry outside and admit his fault, then invoking the Mo family to pressure him, and even saying that with only grade C aptitude, no matter how much he cultivated, he would never amount to anything. But all of those words were nothing more than wind passing by Fang Yuan's ears. He did not argue, nor did he get angry. He merely slowly took out a primeval stone, held it in his palm, and then closed his eyes once more. Outside the door, Gu Yue kept rambling on without end. Inside, Fang Yuan had already stepped once again into his own world, amid the biting night wind. Beneath the pale moonlight spread all over the stone steps. A man being blocked outside his own room did not feel that he had fallen into a weak position at all, because he knew very clearly that the one truly bound tonight was not him, but those standing outside the door who imagined themselves to hold the initiative. Through half the night, Fang Yuan almost did not pay attention to the person guarding outside the door at all. As he absorbed primeval essence from the primeval stone, he silently observed his own primeval sea. The water level in his aperture slowly rose, slow but steady. To him, cultivation was originally like this. It could not be rushed, and there was no need to rush it either. The one who was truly anxious was instead the man sitting outside in the freezing corridor. After a long accumulation, Fang Yuan's primeval sea finally reached its limit of 44% once more, but he still did not stop. Because what he needed was not merely initial stage primeval essence. With a slight movement of thought, the liquor worm rose once more from the surface of the primeval sea. 10% of the primeval essence was absorbed by it. Then, after the refining process, what it returned was no longer the same as before, but middle-stage primeval essence, purer, stronger, and far more effective than the kind ordinary students were using. In other words, although Fang Yuan's realm had still not changed, what he was using at this moment had already surpassed most of his peers. To be faster than others, one naturally had to pay a greater price than others. After only one night of cultivation, 3 primeval stones had already been completely consumed by him. At first glance, the resources in his hands still seemed plentiful, but at this rate they would soon be exhausted. Dawn was near. The sky outside had already turned a faint dark blue-black. The moonlight disappeared. Cold dew gathered on the threshold. In the damp academy room, the air was so freezing that after sitting still for one whole night, even his legs had gone numb. Fang Yuan opened his palm. The leftover powder from the primeval stone quietly fell away. He glanced outside the door. Gu Yue was still there, curled up in a corner, looking both tired and miserable. Mo Yan had obviously left long ago, leaving only this household servant behind to continue standing guard. At that thought, the corner of Fang Yuan's mouth curled slightly into a faint smile. He got off the bed, warmed up his body with a bit of movement, then pushed open the door and stepped outside. The moment he heard the sound, Gu Yue immediately sprang to his feet. He was much taller than Fang Yuan, with a heavy build, a fierce gaze, and a tone full of intimidation. In his eyes, a 15-year-old boy like Fang Yuan should have bowed his head obediently long ago, but Fang Yuan did not reply. He only continued walking forward. And in that very instant, the real clash began. Gu Yue took the initiative to press in, thinking that by relying on his physical advantage and strength, he could overpower the other side in an instant. But the moment he made his move, he immediately realized that things were not nearly as simple as he had imagined. Fang Yuan did not confront him head-on. He slipped aside, changed angles, and struck with extreme speed at places that would make his opponent uncomfortable and lose balance. Even just a few brief exchanges were enough to make Gu Yue break out in a cold sweat. Because he discovered something extremely frightening, the youth before him was not fighting wildly at all. Each of his strikes was precise, vicious, and extremely calculated. If he was careless even for a moment, Gu Yue could immediately fall into a disadvantageous position. But Fang Yuan also quickly understood something else. If he relied only on his current body and ordinary fist and foot techniques, he still could not completely overpower the other side. After all, Gu Yue was someone who had trained bitterly for many years, in the very prime of a mortal's physical strength. His power, stamina, and toughness all far surpassed those of a boy who had only just turned 15. In other words, this was no longer a fight against those immature students from before, but a real trial of strength. On one side was killing experience accumulated through the years. On the other was a mature body long tempered through training. With just a tiny opening, the whole situation would change immediately. Gu Yue no longer dared underestimate him either. His initial contempt vanished completely. In its place came caution, vigilance, and ambition as well. Because he understood very clearly that if he truly managed to capture Fang Yuan and bring him back, Mo Yan would definitely reward him. Thinking of this, Gu Yue began pressing harder and harder. Fang Yuan did not retreat this time either, he met him head-on. The two sides immediately plunged into a fierce struggle right in front of the dormitory door. The sounds of impact rang out continuously through the early morning courtyard. The air itself seemed to tighten. What sent chills down one's spine was that although his frame was smaller, although his strength was inferior, Fang Yuan showed no disorder at all. On the contrary, the more he fought, the clearer-headed he became. The more they clashed, the colder his eyes grew. Every shift of his steps, every dodge, every beat of his counterattack felt as if it had been calculated long in advance. Only now did Gu Yue understand that the most frightening thing about the youth before him was not strength, nor speed, but bearing. A kind of bearing belonging to someone who dared throw himself into danger without even blinking. A kind of calmness so cold it was terrifying, as if he had long since grown accustomed to confrontations like this. So after only a few exchanges, a very strange situation took shape. On the surface, Gu Yue still held the advantage in physique. But in the rhythm of the fight, the one truly holding the initiative was Fang Yuan. And only then did Gu Yue truly realize one thing. The person he was facing was not an ordinary youth, but a young wolf, silent, cold, and extremely dangerous. In the end, Fang Yuan's advantage did not last forever. After a period of deadlock, his breathing began to grow heavier. A teenage body, after all, still could not compare with someone like Gu Yue, who had trained bitterly for many years. His opponent, however, was the opposite. The longer he fought, the hotter his body became. The longer he fought, the faster and heavier his punches and kicks became. The gap in endurance between the two sides began to show very clearly. Gu Yue noticed this as well. He let out a harsh laugh and continuously used words to apply psychological pressure. Wanting to throw Fang Yuan into disorder. Wanting to force him to collapse before the fight was truly decided, but he was mistaken. How could someone who had once crawled his way out of countless life-and-death battles be shaken by a few threats? Fang Yuan remained as cold as ice. No anger, no impatience, only quietly calculating his next move. Then at that very moment, he widened the distance. One step back, a slight stir of thought and blue light immediately gathered in his palm. Moonlight Gu. Gu Yue's expression changed on the spot. Because this was the academy grounds. According to the rules, Gu worms were not to be used in battle without permission. But Fang Yuan paid no attention at all. What he had learned from rules was not to be bound by them, but to know when to make use of them and when to step past them. In the next instant he attacked. A moonblade tore through the air. Gu Yue hurriedly tried to defend, wanting to use the moment just after his opponent attacked to close in and finish things quickly. But after only that instant of collision, everything changed. The force of this strike far exceeded his expectations. Gu Yue was immediately shaken. Not only because of the sudden injury that appeared, but also because of an even more frightening truth. The power of this moonblade was nothing like the level an ordinary initial stage Gu master could produce. He did not understand what was happening. He only knew that the youth before him had something about him that completely exceeded all expectations. And at that very instant, Gu Yuan's fighting spirit began to collapse. He turned and ran, shouting loudly for help as he fled. His cries rang out through the empty academy in the early morning, sharp enough to make others uneasy. The commotion quickly alarmed the nearby guards. They ran over, saw the scene before them, yet none of them immediately stepped in. Because in their eyes, Gu Yuan was only the household servant of an outsider. Fang Yuan, on the other hand, was a student who bore the Gu Yu surname. If they had to choose, naturally they would lean towards someone of their own clan. Gu Yuan understood this as well. The instant he saw the hesitation in the guard's eyes, his heart turned completely cold. He knew that no one was truly going to save him anymore. Behind him, Fang Yuan continued the pursuit. Not hurried in the least, not shaken in the least, as if from the moment the battle had begun, this outcome had already been decided. Then, within only a brief instant, every sound abruptly ceased. The chase ended. Gu Yuan fell, no longer able to stand. The guards in the distance immediately changed expression. Some cried out in alarm. Some stood rooted to the spot. They had personally witnessed something no one had expected. A youth only 15 years old had actually used such decisive methods to end the battle. But even more frightening than Gu Yuan's end was Fang Yuan's expression afterward. He did not tremble, he did not panic. He was not shaken in the slightest, as if what had just happened were merely something far too ordinary. That calmness was what truly sent a chill down the guards' spines. Because only now did they understand that the one standing before them was not an ordinary youth, but someone with a temperament frighteningly cold. Fang Yuan slowly swept his gaze across the entire scene. His eyes were still as water. It was obvious that in his mind, he had already begun calculating what came next. Because he knew very clearly that the most frightening thing at this moment was not only that a battle had just ended, but what that battle might reveal. Too many people had seen it. Too many traces had been left behind. And there were secrets that, once traced back, would bring consequences that would not stop with today alone. So he did not waste even a single breath. He immediately began dealing with the aftermath. Dragging away the corpse, taking another blade from a guard's hand. From beginning to end, his movements were so calm that they made others feel suffocated. No one dared stop him, and no one dared ask a question. More than 10 guards could only stand there, stunned, watching the back of the 15-year-old youth slowly depart beneath the first light of dawn. One hand holding a blade, one hand dragging behind him the price of the battle that had just ended. The stone-paved path behind him left a long trail of blood that made anyone who saw it shudder. The sun had risen. Morning light poured down over the academy. Yet the more than 10 people standing there did not feel the slightest warmth. Because what they had just seen was already enough to burn itself deep into their memories for a very long time to come. Rumors spread with astonishing speed. In only a single morning, the entire academy was shaken. People huddled close together whispering, their eyes uneasy, their faces pale. Because the name they were speaking of was Fang Yuan. It was no longer about robbing primeval stones, nor about a few brawls among youths. This time it was about killing someone. To these students who were only 15 years old, that was something far too unfamiliar, far too heavy, and far too frightening. They had grown up under the protection of the clan. At most they had only sparred with fists and feet. At most they had killed chickens or dogs. But killing a person was something completely different. Very quickly, every gaze in the classroom turned toward Mo Bei. Because everyone knew that the dead man was connected to the Mo clan, and the person who had most recently clashed with Fang Yuan was Mo Bei himself. Mo Bei sat in his place, his face deathly pale. What he felt in his heart now was not merely shock, but genuine fear. Because he knew that man, knew him very well. And because he knew him so well, the chill in his spine only deepened, nor was he alone. The other students also began to remember. They had once been blocked by Fang Yuan, once been forced by him to hand over primeval stones, once directly exchanged blows with him. At that time they had only thought him hateful, frightening, hard to deal with. But now everything had changed completely. Because from the moment the rumor spread, in the eyes of those youths, Fang Yuan was no longer simply a classmate in the same class. He had become a name people did not dare look at directly. A presence heavy enough to make the atmosphere in the academy itself feel much more oppressive. At the same time, in another room, the academy elder sat facing the very person who had caused all of it. One sitting, one standing. The air was so heavy it seemed to press down on the chest. The academy elder looked at Fang Yuan for a long time. The expression in his eyes was strangely complicated, because even he had not expected things to develop to this point. From the very beginning, he had never stopped the conflicts between students. He had even secretly permitted them. Because in this world, struggle was far too normal a thing. If one wished to become a true Gu master, one could not remain forever in comfort and shelter. But he had not expected that Mo Yan would fail. That even the household servant left behind would fail. And that in the end matters would go so far that they were no longer easy to clean up. What puzzled the elder most was not victory or defeat, but Fang Yuan's attitude. He remembered very clearly the first time he had killed someone. Panic, sleeplessness, no appetite. The moment he closed his eyes, the scene from that day would return. But Fang Yuan was different, too different. The youth stood before him with unchanged expression, steady eyes, and even his breathing showed no abnormality at all. As if last night he had only enjoyed a very peaceful sleep. As if those events that had shaken the entire academy had not left even the slightest ripple in his heart. That made the elder feel both cold and regretful. Cold because this youth's temperament was too abnormal. Regretful because if all other issues were set aside, then his combat talent was truly too outstanding. A person like this, if tempered properly, would become an extremely terrifying blade of the clan. But at the same time, the elder was beginning to feel a headache. Because this matter was no longer only the affair of a single student. It already involved the Mo clan, involved the academy rules, and more importantly, it was making Fang Yuan's name harder and harder to suppress. At last, the elder broke the silence. He asked Fang Yuan whether he knew why he had been summoned. And the reply he received was still in the familiar style of that youth. Not outright evasive, yet not a direct answer either. He deliberately pulled the conversation back to the use of moonlight Gu inside the academy, brought up clan rules, brought up fines. As if that were the truly serious issue here. After hearing that, the elder's expression darkened. He no longer wanted to hear him dodge the issue. So the next question was thrown out directly. What exactly happened in Gao Wan's death? Fang Yuan narrowed his eyes, then calmly replied. According to him, it had all been self-defense. The man had blocked his door with ill intent, and he had only been forced to strike back in order to preserve himself. No panic, no awkwardness. No sign of someone who had just been driven into a corner. The way he spoke was so smooth that it was difficult for others to grasp any flaw in it. The elder listened and only frowned more deeply. Because the man was already dead, and it was no longer easy to verify every word. So he changed to asking about something else, the aftermath after the battle. And then Fang Yuan gave an answer that startled even the elder himself. Not because he spoke too loudly, but because the content of that answer had gone far beyond what the elder wanted to hear. At that moment, the elder truly felt a headache coming on. Because he understood very clearly that by now, this matter was no longer as simple as punishing a student. It had become a knot of trouble that would be very hard to settle with the Mo clan. In the elder's eyes at this moment, Fang Yuan was no longer merely an outstanding student. He was like a comet. Wherever he went, he caused upheaval. Whatever he touched, trouble followed. In the end, the elder could only dismiss him for the time being. Because even he needed time to think, to weigh things, to prepare for the wave that was about to come crashing down. As for Fang Yuan, from beginning to end, he remained exactly the same, calm, indifferent, completely unmoved.